Buddy, welcome to our Powerful Creator Money Mastermind. We are discussing The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And today we are discussing just the intro chapter, The Greatest Show on Earth. And so I really love this chapter. I honestly started crying when I read it, when I started reading the beginning of it, when he talked about how Ronald James Reed was a simple man, but he left over $8 million to his kids. And like whenever I read that, I got really emotional about it because one, like it reminded me of my dad, and it gave me hope that like my family, like we could build assets, like my dad like is a very hard worker to this day. Like he's 60 years old and he drives trucks out here and he's working all day long still, 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, still today, right now. And I don't want that for him, and so it gave me a lot of hope that our family is going to create generational wealth. And then it also gave me a lot of hope too, because just like he said, what did he say? He was like, Ronald Reed lived like a low-key life. Like he was a very simple person, and he was able to do that. And the reason why that excited me is because I am not a simple person. I am very eager. I am very driven. I'm very passionate. So I was like, okay, bet. Like if he could do it, I could freaking do it. So it gave me a lot of hope in that. And then it talked about like the behavior, like that's what it really went into about what this book is about. It like really the psychology of money and how we behave. And I love that because it's true. In Rich Dad Poor Dad, he was talking about how it doesn't take much like math education to be financially literate, to be a millionaire, to be able to learn, like to manage money. It takes just simple fundamentals of math, like adding and subtracting, and honestly, I think a lot of times when it comes to investing, when it comes to stocks, when it comes to doing all of the things with money, we get really intimidated because what we think it's going to be, like we think it's hard and we think it requires all these things, but really it doesn't. Like it really just takes, learning, and really starting off with the belief, right? Believing that you can. I think that's one of the biggest things that like it's real, and then once you get past that, like all of us, we believe that we can. That's why we're here. That's why we're showing up. That's why we're doing it. But one thing I've definitely learned like on this journey for myself and what he talks about in this first chapter is that it's really not about how much money you make. It's about your behavior and how you handle it, and that's why like I always stress, doing the work, reading the books, learning about yourself. Like that's why in this community, like it's, I guess, like two equal parts, like, spiritual development and personal development and financial development. And they go hand in hand, right? Like if we can't manage our emotions, if we can't manage, our time, our life, then it's going to be really hard for us to manage our money. And especially like when it comes to money, we're so emotional about it. We're extremely emotional about it because it triggers every single part of us, and so when it comes to learning financial literacy and actually applying the steps, that's why I talked about last time on the call, on the Powerful Creator call, about like one of the best skills you can have is emotional intelligence and being able to manage your emotions, like being able to be aware of what you are feeling and know how to move your emotions, right? And that's a particular skill because a lot of people don't think that they can do that. A lot of people think that they are a victim to the way that they feel. Like this is just how I feel, this is just the way that I am, and everybody needs to figure out how to be around me because it's how I am. And that's not the case. Like no, like I know when I was talking to my little sisters a couple of years ago, one of my sisters was talking to me and we were talking about our cycle and the different mood swings that we go throughout our cycle. And whenever we were talking about it, she responded back to me and she was like, yeah, that's why I keep trying to tell my boyfriend like about that, so he understands like this and he understands like why I am the way that I am. And I was like, no, that is not his responsibility. That is your responsibility. No one should be around here stepping on eggshells, walking around your emotions and how you're feeling, and to be honest, like when it comes to emotional intelligence, the more that I learn about it, and even just the more that I'm getting older and learning boundaries when it comes to relationships, in my personal relationships, you have to be emotionally mature like to talk to me. Like if you're gonna treat me some type of way or be rude to me because you're having a bad day, because you're hangry, because you don't know how to control your emotions, I'm not going to talk to you. I will not tolerate being disrespected because you don't know how to handle your emotions, you know? And honestly, like I just think about my sisters a lot, you know, because they're younger than me and this and that. And I just even remember like a simple example where like it was last week, literally. Um, we were like all in the kitchen hanging out at my mom's house, and my sister was like, "Here, can you put these in the oven?" And I was like, "No." Like, no. And then later she was like, "Well, you never want to help. You never want to help me." I'm like, "Leah, you did not ask me to help you. You threw the jalapeno poppers at me and said, 'Can you do this?' That's rude. Like you didn't ask me. You didn't say, "Hey, can you help me?" You didn't say, "Hey," like, nah, girl, we gotta learn how to communicate around here." You know? And so like when it comes to money, what I've learned a lot is like it really takes managing your emotions, like understanding who you are and doing that, it's really tedious. I feel like in the beginning too, when you're like watching the way that you feel. Like in the last powerful creator conversation, we talked about manifesting abundance and um watching your emotions. And you know, like one of the exercises that my mentor gave me was that same exercise, and it was monitoring your emotions, like as like being aware of how you're feeling in certain areas, especially with money. Like I think that's an exercise that we should all do, is just start being aware of how we feel when we're managing money. Like how do we feel when we're paying gas? How do we feel when we're buying groceries? How do we feel when we're paying bills? Like do we always have this like, oh my god, I have to pay for gas, I have to pay for groceries, I have to pay my bills, like fuck, you know? And we have to understand, like, if we believe that we are abundant, then why are we having that attitude? Like, whatever, here you go, more where that came from, you know? So the only way to heal that is in like real time, you know, to identify that belief and shift it and be like, okay, this is how I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling. Why? What happened? Who said that? You know, I don't want to feel this way no more. How am I supposed to feel? How can I feel? You know, and then doing that. And then once you do that over and over and over again for years, your mindset starts to shift and starts to change, and it starts to just be how you think, right? It starts to be your mindset. So that's how you start to believe, you know, like you don't even have to think about it no more. You just swipe away with no emotion because it doesn't need to be emotional. You are solid, you are clear with your finances, you know? And so I'm excited for this book. And one thing that he said was so funny because I was like, was that this book is written in a way that where every chapter could be a standalone book, like it's a standalone subject. And y'all know me, I like to deep dive into everything. So I was like, all right, well, like I'm just so grateful that we're reading this book together, because I just feel like if I read that, then I would probably, like if I read that by myself and I was having to do this work by myself, it would take me so long to get through each chapter, because I would just have to own then tattoo the chapter on me before I moved on. So I knew it, but it's all good. Okay, next, Anastasia, you want to go next?
Okay, can you hear me? You can? Okay.
Yes.
So this is actually the first book I'm reading in a book club. I've been on book clubs, but I'm actually reading this book. So, uh, let me look at my notes. Can you guys still see me?
No, but we can hear you and we can see your
Okay.
picture.
Okay, because I'm on my notes, so I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
that's
talk.
okay.
All right, so I wrote Psychology of Money. So, um, I listened to the audio Easy sent, so and then I was typing really fast notes. So I don't always remember what this was for. But I wrote Rich and Brilliant. Oh, so the guy, I don't remember his name, the first guy, he was like, He was rich and brilliant, but he was greedy and impulsive at the same time. He was like financially reckless. Um, the author wrote, "Money is not a badge of honor. Money is not physics, it's psychology." Because like I'm obsessed with charts, I'm obsessed with accounting, I'm obsessed with organization of numbers, and it's not even about that. So that kind of blew my mind. Um, it's not about being smart, it's about behavior. A genius can ruin it by being insecure. Like that hit hard. Um, oh, so Amber, you mentioned the uh 2 million and then 6 million to someone else, and I was mind blown by that because I'm like, the gifts he gave to others is the financial freedom I want. He has the tools, experience, connections, and education, but like people will lose it. The book said like people will lose it by overconfidence and leverage. Um, People are the base with financial hack. Oh, people are the base. Okay, that's a typo for sure. People are something with financial hacks, but still live check to check. Oh, so the education, like we all like read these books, we all like website, we take courses, we just like really drown ourselves in learning about money and how to handle it, but like no one teaches us the psychology. So, and at the end of the day, a lot of people have their budgets lined out, but then still is living check to check. So that was cool. Um, so it said patience over any greed. Um, Knowing you need to save doesn't mean you will. Basically, just if I talk about saving doesn't mean I'm actually saving. Um, so it also said basically money is emotions, fears, dreams, identity. Oh wait, I don't know if I got that one. Money, emotions, fears, dreams, and then I have health and money. Oh, that's what he said too. So health and money, science has helped the health, but money is stuck in behavior because it has nothing to do with anything but our minds. They said this book is my mirror. Habits, emotions, and thoughts about money is the goal.
Thank you. Go ahead and popcorn.
Easy, you ready? You were just at your desk, girl? Anyways, Michelle, if you are good.
What's up, guys? Happy
So,
Thursday. Sorry I'm late. I was watching Fantastic Four. It's so good. Y'all haven't seen it. Hopefully y'all can catch it this weekend. It's so, so, so good. Um, I'm so happy we're reading this book. It's a major gem, and I'm so excited to like dissect it with y'all. So, intro. I think the biggest takeaway like here is for me personally was just like Anastasia said, it's really not about what you know, but more like how you think. And so I like to keep my perspective on things really basic at like a fifth grade level, because then I really like, because then I'll go down a rabbit hole. So for me, it's like, it's not hard science, it's just really tackling your emotions. And so to piggyback off of um, Tuesday's call, it's that emotional intelligence that we talked about. And really not only just harboring something like that, but really like embodying that. And so minds like all the things we're already doing, which puts us in such a huge position for the beautiful things to come, like our mindset, just our patience that we're learning to have. Cause like it's normal. We don't all have that mastered, and we don't have to have it all together right now. But as long as we have that awareness, which I feel like we all hold each other to a really high standard, which is really awesome in this group. That's that patience that we all remind each other of, like when ego or greed or like FOMO comes about, or even fear of like, oh no, like I don't want to invest in that because what if it doesn't XYZ? Just us being like around the campfire almost like pushes us one to invest in a, because you are who you hang out with. And even though we're not physically all together, our energies are intertwining like every Thursday, every Tuesday, right? So it's dope. So with all that, it's like the discipline, habits, Amber, I always like go back to this because it's such a prime example when she went back to her finances and she went back to basics and was like, okay, where do I stand? Like, what's my DTI, my debt to income, and where am I spending money? Like, for real. That awareness is what's like her habits of where her money was going, and that ownership of like, okay, I've been messing up, then creates room for her to actually make changes because she's being realistic and being hyper aware of how much money she's spending. And then that thus leads to like emotional control, you know? And with time, right? So like just honoring where you're at and having that abundance mindset. Hello, which we're all working, you know? I still will emotional spend. Like I will be the first one to raise my hand in the room and say, when I'm feeling a type of way, whatever it is, like I'm having like a daddy issue moment because I'm human, I'll try to I'll spend money to try to fulfill that void. But now I'm now, because I'm aware of that, I have like my partner Dylan, who like specifically today, y'all, which is why it's so crazy, like this conversation. I was like, I need this water filter machine. It's like $5,000. It's going up August 1st to $8,000. Girl, I don't have $5,000 to just like blow because I'm not a millionaire yet. However, so he's like, looked at me, he's like, babe, we do not need that right now. And it kind of took me like back, and I was like, you're right. Cause I was just gonna do the payment plan. I was like, you're right. We don't need that. Like I had to like think of, I didn't even say that to him, but in my mind, that's what I was thinking, like as I was processing it, because yesterday was my dad's death anniversary. So it's just so interesting how our mind is. And when you start to understand that you're here by design, you're here for the human experience. It's that awareness that if I'm having a moment where I'm in an emotion, having my partner like keep me accountable is so imperative. And I'm just so grateful for him, as I haven't even said these words to him, but he's sitting next to me because we're driving home and he's hearing me say this. It's really like crazy because you're like, we're just here trying to like have the human experience, and God is constantly teaching us things, and we're learning like all these lessons. And bigger than money, bigger than understanding it, is understanding yourself. And I think that's the biggest lesson here, is that it all stems from love. It all stems back to peace, kindness, like being humble. And I don't mean like humble spending. I mean, being a humble human, and everything else like behavioral science, that's just secondary. So that's my biggest takeaway. Yeah, you can be the smartest person in the room, and that has nothing to do with your finances. Everything has to do with how you behave. It's why you see people who win the lotto go broke. And then there was this janitor one year who had invested thousands of dollars into stock after winning the lotto, and had mastered like delayed gratification and has like healthy spending habits. And so he was able to, when he died, donate millions of dollars to like the charity of his choice because of that emotional control. So that's an example of like two individuals that, one having the control and, watching something go into like the trillions and be able to like donate it, versus someone who got excited and just spent it all. So that's my biggest takeaway. I think Roshizi's hasn't gone, so I'm gonna click on her.
I thought you were supposed to be saving people. Talk about I just got done watching the Fantastic Four. um, I'm just kidding, kind of. I feel like, yeah, thanks everybody for sharing. And I was thinking about this experience that I had today. I was out eating lunch with some people, right? And the guy next to me pulls out his pocketbook and he's talking about, he counts out all his cash, right? And he's like, I ain't got no money. When he's got like well over at least $100 in cash, which is not like a lot, but like that's money, right? And he's like, I ain't got no money, huh? And he was just getting done telling me about how him and his wife are moving so that they can live in a more affordable place. Meanwhile, I'm over here looking at my bill. It's like $22.97, $23. And I have $16 in my bank account. And I'm like, I'm rich. And then I was also like, I need help paying for the rest of my bill and I can pay you back when I get when this check deposits in my account. And so the guy that was like, oh, I don't have any money, gives me the money to help pay the rest of my bill. But like, it was just interesting how I feel like that was a good example of like the psychology of money, you know? Cause like I wasn't tripping about the fact that I didn't have the money to cover my bill. I've been waiting on this check that I deposited to like clear and it's still pending. So I'm like, somebody needs to just cover the rest of my shit. Um, my bill right now and we'll be good. But like I don't know, I never, but like ever since I started fucking with y'all, I am rich and I don't worry about anything. You know what I mean? Like, and who's gonna pay for this? Who's gonna pay for that? And like I'm gonna pay him back just because I told him I would. But I was thinking like I shouldn't pay him back. Like I deserve to just get my stuff paid for. But anyway, I don't know. I I'm excited to read this book because for all the reasons I'm really excited to read this book. I think it's timely for where I'm at, for sure. And I think that also it will just kind of bring some things together. I don't know, because we talked a lot about like in reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon, like these books talk a lot about I don't know how to phrase it, but like talk like, teach you about the financial literacy part of it and like strategy and, stuff like that. But um the minds and I mean they talk about mindset too, but like the mindset and how we think about things and perceive and believe, like that's like a big part of everything, right? Like that's how we experience our life, is how we believe it is. So I don't know, like I've always been interested in psychology, human psychology, period. Like I thought about going to school for it just because I think human behavior is like weird. I think it's really weird and interesting, and money is like something, how people will say like, oh, money changes people, like why is that? Well, we're about to find out because the psychology of money. um and yeah, I don't really have too much else to say other than thanks for sharing. And thank you. I look like Dora, don't I? We did it. Como Sivo. We did it. All right. I can't mute myself. You're gonna have to mute
Do you
me.
have a map?
Always.
Map, map, map.
Follow me because I know the way.
Amen.
Y'all are a mess. I love y'all so much. Yes, I'm so grateful for this book. I'm grateful for this call. I'm grateful for this space, all the conversations that we've been having, all the value that comes out, through these conversations, and the accountability. Like the accountability is so good, like for ourselves, for each other. And Michelle was right. Like we do hold ourselves to a higher standard, to be able to, actually do the work, to be able to communicate effectively, to be able to, show up. And I'm just so excited and happy. You have no idea. I've been looking for all my whole life Okay, it's past 10 years. I've been looking for my tribe, and we are here. So yeah, I'm grateful that, to continue to read this book and get into it and do the work. And so with that being said, I did a deep dive on all the information that came through in our last call. And in the blog that I wrote, I put all of the information in a way for you to be able to research it. So like all of the amazing gems that both Anastasia and Michelle were dropping on us, I put that in question form. Like, what is XRP? What is a utility token? What is a white paper? Like all of that stuff. And so go ahead and go do it, like sit there, do your research. I've been doing my research over the past week, and I have learned everything I feel like thoroughly. And even in one part of my research too, I was just not getting something. Like I could not, I couldn't see it. And I like was using like ChatGPT as my tool. And I was like, I need you to explain this to me like more simpler. And it was just funny because it gave me like this very simple analogy when it came to like the tokens and stuff. And I really liked it because the thing is like sometimes we need like things broken down very, very simply for us to understand, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely okay. Like literally ChatGPT told me 3 different ways what this definition was. And I was just like, I need a visual. I was like, I need to visually see this. Like, tell me how this works in terms, like I would know, like very simple. And I learned, I was able to get like a really like good analogy. I've been learning, I've been putting the information together, I've been doing my research, and I'm excited, we're out here doing the work, and it wouldn't be like we wouldn't have, like this information if it wasn't for these calls. Like obviously it is out here in the world, but there's a reason why the topics that come up in in these conversations with us are for a reason, they're like in divine alignment, they're timely. And yeah, so let's get out there, let's do the work, let's apply these principles, let's utilize our tools, and let's just keep building and keep stacking. And one of the biggest things that he talked about in this book, like in the intro chapter, was your mindset, and the fact that like Michelle, like in the beginning of a call, I started off in saying that whenever I like read this chapter today, and he talked about like Ronald Reed and what he left for his family, like I just started crying. I started crying because it seemed so practical, it seemed so real. And I was like, yes, like if he can do it, I can do it. And like in the chapter, he had mentioned like that man was like a very simple man, he was just like disciplined, he just did his thing. And it reminded, like I said, it reminded me of my dad. Like I want to retire my dad, I want him just to be out here and just spend time with him and love him. Like I don't want him, to this and that. And like my dad is a very big dreamer, and like my whole life, like he's the one who like instilled the belief within me. And like I remember even recently, like we were talking about something, and he just mentioned like literally like had a vulnerable moment. He's like, so you still, I could cry thinking about it, but he asked me, he's like, you still like, do you think I can still make it? And I was like, yes, dad. Like doesn't matter how old you are. Like, like KFC guy, fried chicken at 65 years old. And my dad is like that age. Like I think I don't know, my dad's in his 60s. He doesn't look like it because my dad is very fit. He literally looks like he could be in his 40s. But I just know like sorry guys, this is just like such a big deal. Yes, we are gonna make it. We are doing it. And I'm just so grateful. Like it's just because like when I think about my dad came like his life to my life. Like my dad was an orphan. He got dropped off at the gas station at 3 years old, and he grew up in the system, and he got adopted at 15, and they put him back at 16, and he's just never known like unconditional love. And like he's a hard worker. He didn't have parents who raised him or took care of him. Like my dad was abused, and he has like mental and a lot of mental and emotional issues. Like my dad did not have a lot of emotional intelligence, like, at all. Like, we grew up in a very, like, codependent house because, you know, it was one of those things where, like, the mood was based on my dad's mood, you know? And I've had to heal a lot from that. But like growing up and doing that work and seeing my dad and, you know, like hurt people. Like my dad, it was at one point in time, like it was just a little boy who had dreams too, you know, and like my dad's made a lot of mistakes, you know, like a lot. Like him and my mom, like they don't live together anymore. And I just know that like he has a lot of insecurities like about himself and what he's done and what he hasn't done like for the family. And like my dad hasn't created any assets or created anything to leave us with anything, you know? And so like, I'm sure he can like look at himself, and he does, and you know, be very insecure and stuff. But no, like I'm not gonna let that be his story or our story. Like he was a good dad to me, he took care of me, and he always told me to believe in myself. He always told me that I could do anything no matter what, you know, and like honestly, like that's enough. Like maybe he didn't create the generational wealth, but he raised me, and like I'm doing that, you know, and that's enough. You know what I mean? Like maybe he wasn't supposed to, maybe he was just supposed to be my dad, so I can do this, you know. Because he's my stepdad also. My dad abandoned me, like, and it's not like my real dad is in San Antonio, and I haven't talked to him in like over 20 years. And I'm only 30. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, it's just like we're doing some real life stuff, you know, and I'm just really, really grateful because I can see it. I know it. Like it's there, you know, those paradigms are real. And today, like after I read this chapter and I was walking on my walk, like I was just so grateful. Like I even looked in my bank account, and I have like some of my accounts hidden, you know, like when you can like hide your accounts from like being able to see. And so it doesn't show me the full balance. And today I looked at like I opened up all my accounts because I was doing my money power hour and I was doing my financial system. And I had about like just to be very transparent with y'all, like just in my checking account and throughout my accounts, I had like $5,000 in there. And that's the most I've ever had at one point in time. That's the most that anybody in my family I know for a fact has, like at all, you know? Um and so when I saw it, I was just so grateful because I like in my mind, I'm like, I what I imagined in my mind, I was like, when those accounts, like when that number hits $10,000, you know, and me being able to say like the thing that I envisioned for myself is nothing like out here. Like obviously I'm moving that money, I'm investing that money, you know, that money's gonna grow upon itself and stuff. And I have other money in other accounts. I was just in my checking accounts. But the reason why that's important is because I imagined the day where I have like $10,000 and I'm able to show my sisters and my brother that it's real. Like I'm actually able to show them my bank account and say, look, this is a real number in a real account. Because that was the one thing that I never fucking had when it like when what Rochelle said, like um you know, or no, it was Anastasia. Like people talk about saving, but they don't actually save. That was my dad. He always talked about saving. He always told me how to save, but he never saved and he never showed me how to save. So I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that kind of behavior was like. And y'all know I'm a very kinesthetic learner. Like that's one thing I learned about myself. I got to see it. Like I have to see the way it goes. And so I can make sense in my brain and I can do it. And I didn't have that. And then even growing up and I mean, continuing like to do my personal development. That's why I'm super about like actual tangible results, because even in personal development, there's a bunch of people telling me to make money. And I'm like, what does that fucking look like? What do your bank accounts look like? Like, what do you do with the money when you literally get it and do this and do that? Like, where do you put it? And that's why to me, like ChatGPT has just been such like a life-changing experience because I'm able to actually ask real questions without people being like, oh, or I'm not going to show you this, or not having any results to actually show, you know? And so I'm just excited to be like to continue to do this work and show like my sisters and my family and even us, like this is real, this is possible. Like I'm doing it, like this is not just for like I want to be honest, like in the language that I grew up in, this is not just for rich white people who live over there. Like no, this is for us, you know, because even that, like with our language, like we were taught these things, you know, and that shit's real. Like for example, I took Hannah to Devereaux's birthday party last weekend, and Hannah, my sister Hannah, is darker than me. She's a lot darker than me. And Deborah was white and her whole family is white. And like when we left, she like told me, like she was like, and she said, she was like, you know, mom always said like, you know, these rich white people or this and that. She was like, I hate that. Like I hate that. Like, you know, I liked going over there and I loved, you know, hanging out. But for some reason I just kept thinking that they were thinking that I was just like the dark, dirty Mexican. And that's just because of the narrative that we grew up, you know, like my mom will always make comments like that, like, oh, you know, we're going to be around white people. Like, you need to dress like this, or you need to do this, or you do this. Like, you know, that's just a fucking story in our head. That's not real. You know what I mean? But that shapes the way that we think, that shapes our psychology, that shapes the way that we think about ourselves. And I know even for me, like that shaped the way that I thought about money, that I thought about, you know, asking for help. Like, you know, even sometimes I was thinking about, like when we were talking about networking and I was doing my emotional healing work when it came to networking and building a network and going to networking events, I realized that I had a block when it came to going to financial networking events because I didn't want to feel like I didn't belong. I didn't want to, like, I didn't want people to think that I was stupid. I didn't know what I was talking about, or if I was just some like poor little fucking girl, you know, but that's not true. You know, that those are narratives, those are stories. And I cancel all of those stories out right now. Thank you, God. They're out, they're released from my mind in this moment. And that's all I have to say about that. But that is it for this call, guys. If anyone else wants to say anything before we end, next week we are reading No One's Crazy. So if you think you're crazy, apparently no one is. So all right, guys, I love y'all so much. Let's continue to do our work and be out here and ask questions and do the damn thing. I'll see y'all on Tuesday.
Grateful for all you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.